Hello, everybody. It's Mrs. Pound, and this is the final section of Chapter 2.3 on fungi from Purposeful Design Life Science. Today, we're going to talk about Section 2.3.3 Fungi and the World. So, our objectives today are to summarize the role of fungi in the ecosystem, identify several ways in which fungi are helpful, and name several ways that fungi are harmful. Now, the main role of fungi in the ecosystem is to break down dead plant matter and recycle nutrients in the soil. If fungi did not do this, there would be all kinds of things laying around, like in a forest. Once a tree dies, the logs would pile up one on top of another. And fungi recycle dead matter by living off of dead or decaying materials. So they actually live off that. Remember, they're called saprophytes. It is important that they do so because they break down substances of dead matter and recycle nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus in the ecosystem. Remember, we only have so much matter on Earth and it has to be recycled because we cannot create more matter. And so, if all of the trees that died and all of the leaves that fell off the trees and everything did not decay and break down, all those nutrients would be used up and no more trees would then grow. Another beneficial interaction that fungi have is called mutualism. This is the relationship between two organisms that live and work together for the benefit of both. An example is lichen. This is fungi and algae or cyanobacteria living together and mutually benefiting each other. So, what the fungi do is they provide nutrients to the algae or cyanobacteria, and the algae and cyanobacteria provide water and food to the fungus because they undergo photosynthesis, which fungi do not. They have to get their food from other places because they do not have chlorophyll, even though they tend to look plant like. Also, lichen are very important in the ecosystem because they will break rock down. A lot of times you see them living on rocks. They actually are slowly breaking the rock down into soil. And in the Arctic, they are actually a good food source for caribou and other deer. They are also a good indicator of air pollution because if air pollution reaches high levels, there will be less lichen in the area. So they can be used to gauge air pollution. Now, some fungi are parasites, so, like with athlete's foot. And other diseases or conditions caused by fungi are athlete's foot, ergot poisoning, and rust or diseases of certain crops. In the background, you can see a rust forming on a leaf. Now, fungal diseases are responsible for killing the American chestnut and chestnut, excuse me, and the American elm, which are now very rare trees in the United States. And ergot poisoning is actually possibly the culprit behind the Salem witch trials. It's believed that this form of poisoning, now, ergot is a fungus that grows on rye and other cereal grains. And it's believed that the way the people who were behaving, who were convicted in those trials, could have been due to ergot poisoning. So, ways fungi are beneficial. They are decomposers, as we talked about before, ridding an area of dead material and recycling those nutrients into the environment. They also have mutualistic relationships, in the case with lichen. They also have mycorrhizal relationships with plant and tree roots. What this does, this is another mutualistic relationship where the fungus provides nutrients to the trees provide moisture, water, and sugar to the mushrooms. And so you will often find fungus in a forest, a healthy forest, and scientists have discovered if the fungus is absent, the trees are not as healthy and they may not actually grow. So they discovered that some reforestation projects that did not work were due to the fact that there was an absence of fungus in the soil. So they have a very important relationship with trees. Also, natural insecticides. So the fungus will also keep insects away from the trees as well. So it helps the trees in that manner. And antibiotics, some fungi actually kill bacteria. You can see on this bread, see that grayish kind of mold? That is actually penicillin growing. And Alexander Fleming discovered that penicillin, it was the first antibiotic, killed bacteria. And so that's why we have antibiotics now. And the reason fungi produce antibiotics is because bacteria also eat food that's decaying, okay? And so they release chemicals to kill the bacteria to reduce their competition, which we then use to kill infections. And many people also would say that if you were sick, to eat moldy bread or to place it on a wound. And so, not knowing it, that was an early form of using antibiotics and would sometimes work. It's also used to make food. We talked about how it's used to make bread. It's also used to make cheese. Here is blue cheese and um, all that kind of greenish blue stuff. That's mold. Okay, so um, some cheeses ripen using mold and it gives it different qualities and characteristics and distinct tastes. So, our objectives today were to summarize the role of fungi in the ecosystem, identify several ways in which fungi are helpful, and name several ways that fungi are harmful. So, don't forget your 5 questions in the margin and to keep watching for the questions at the end. And this is it for this chapter. So, start studying for that test.